Daddy, her baby is freezing. How a CEO single dad and his little girl saved a homeless mother. The little girl's terrified voice cut through the icy winter night like a cry for help from heaven itself. A successful CEO had stopped at a red light with his 6-year-old daughter sitting quietly beside him. He was thinking about business meetings, unfinished reports, and another lonely night waiting for him at home. Then his daughter suddenly pressed her tiny hands against the car window and gasped. What she saw changed 3 lives forever. Across the street, beneath a broken bus shelter, a young homeless mother was desperately wrapping her thin jacket around a tiny baby whose small body was trembling from the freezing cold. The child looked barely alive. And in that heartbreaking moment, the little girl whispered the words that would change everything. Daddy, her baby is freezing. Before we begin this emotional story, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you believe kindness can change lives and that everyone deserves a second chance. Your support helps bring more heartwarming stories to people around the world. The red light turned green, but Ethan Parker couldn't move. Cars behind him started honking. Normally, Ethan was a man who never wasted a second. At 38 years old, he had built a billion-dollar company from nothing. Newspapers called him a genius. Investors called him a visionary. But none of those titles mattered anymore. Because every time he looked at that homeless mother holding her baby, he saw something else. He saw fear. The same fear he had felt 3 years earlier when his wife, Emily, was lying in a hospital bed fighting for her life. She had lost that battle. And ever since that day, Ethan had been raising their daughter Lily alone. He had money, success, and influence. But he also carried a loneliness so deep that even the tallest office building couldn't hide it. Lily tugged on his sleeve. Her eyes were filled with tears. She wasn't looking at the homeless woman. She was looking at the baby. Children often see what adults miss. And Lily saw suffering. Without saying another word, Ethan parked the car. The winter wind struck his face like ice as he crossed the street with Lily holding his hand. The young mother looked frightened when they approached. Her clothes were worn out. Her cheeks were pale. Dark circles surrounded her exhausted eyes. She looked like someone who hadn't slept peacefully in months. But what broke Ethan's heart wasn't her appearance. It was the way she held her baby. Like a mother desperately trying to protect the most precious thing in her world while having absolutely nothing left to give. The infant's face was red from the cold. Tiny fingers trembled uncontrollably. Lily immediately removed her own warm scarf. Without hesitation, she wrapped it around the baby. The homeless mother started crying. Not loud dramatic tears. Just silent tears that rolled down her cheeks. The kind of tears that come when someone has suffered for so long that they forget what kindness feels like. For several moments nobody spoke. Snowflakes drifted slowly through the night air. The city lights reflected on the wet streets. And somehow the entire world felt still. Ethan eventually learned the young mother's name was Sarah. She was 27 years old. The baby's name was Noah. And their story was even more heartbreaking than he expected. 2 years earlier Sarah had been living a normal life. She worked as a nursing assistant. She rented a small apartment. She dreamed about building a future. Then tragedy arrived all at once. Noah's father abandoned them during pregnancy. Medical complications forced Sarah to stop working. Hospital bills consumed her savings. Rent became impossible to pay. One setback became another. Then another. Until eventually she found herself homeless. Many people assume homelessness happens overnight. It doesn't. It usually happens one painful step at a time. A missed payment. A lost job. A medical emergency. A broken relationship. And before someone realizes it, everything they worked for is gone. Ethan listened quietly. The more he heard, the heavier his heart became. Because he knew something most people didn't. Life can change in a single moment. His own life had changed when he lost Emily. And Sarah's life had changed when the people she depended on disappeared. Lily stood silently beside Noah. She gently touched his tiny hand. And surprisingly, the baby stopped crying. A small smile appeared on Lily's face. That smile reminded Ethan of his wife. Emily always believed compassion mattered more than success. She used to tell him that wealth wasn't measured by what you own. It was measured by what you give away. For the first time in years, Ethan heard those words echoing inside his heart. He couldn't walk away. So he did something completely unexpected. He invited Sarah and Noah to dinner. The young mother hesitated. Years of hardship had taught her not to trust easily. But she also saw something genuine in Ethan and Lily. Something she hadn't seen in a very long time. Hope. That night they sat together in a small family restaurant. Sarah ate slowly. Almost carefully. Like someone afraid the food might disappear. Noah slept peacefully after finally becoming warm. And Lily couldn't stop smiling. The little girl shared stories about school. About her favorite books. About missing her mother. And somehow Sarah listened with the same tenderness a family member might. For Ethan, the evening felt strange. Comfortable. Human. Something he hadn't experienced in years. When dinner ended, he booked Sarah and Noah a room in a nearby hotel. At first she refused. Then she cried. Then she accepted. Because sometimes accepting help requires more courage than surviving hardship. As Ethan tucked Lily into bed later that night, she asked him a question. A question he would never forget. She asked whether Noah would be warm when he woke up. Ethan promised he would. Lily smiled and fell asleep. But Ethan remained awake. Thinking. Remembering. Questioning. Why had one little girl noticed what hundreds of adults had ignored? Why had a child been the one to stop? The answer disturbed him. Because children are born compassionate. Adults often become distracted. The next morning Ethan visited the hotel. Sarah looked different. Not because her problems were solved. But because she had finally rested. Hope changes a person's face. And Ethan could see it. Over the following weeks he helped Sarah obtain resources, childcare support, and housing assistance. But what surprised him most was Sarah herself. She never asked for money. Never expected miracles. She simply wanted an opportunity. A chance to rebuild. A chance to stand again. And she worked harder than anyone Ethan had ever met. While caring for Noah, she attended training programs. Applied for jobs. Completed certifications. Refused to quit. Every setback became motivation. Every obstacle became determination. Watching her fight inspired everyone around her. Including Ethan. Because somewhere along the way, he realized he wasn't only helping Sarah. She was helping him. For years he had hidden behind work. Avoiding grief. Avoiding emotions. Avoiding life. But Sarah's resilience reminded him that surviving isn't the same as living. And slowly, he began changing too. He started spending more time with Lily. Leaving the office earlier. Taking weekends off. Listening more. Laughing more. Living more. Months passed. Spring replaced winter. Flowers appeared where snow once covered the ground. And life continued moving forward. Sarah eventually secured a position at a healthcare center. Her first paycheck wasn't huge. But when she received it, she cried. Not because of the amount. But because it represented dignity. Independence. A future. That evening she purchased a small toy for Noah. Nothing expensive. Just a simple stuffed bear. Yet watching her hand it to her son was one of the most beautiful moments Ethan had ever witnessed. Because happiness isn't always found in grand achievements. Sometimes it's found in the smallest victories. Years of hardship had taught Sarah to appreciate every blessing. As Noah grew healthier and stronger, Ethan noticed something else. Lily and Noah had become inseparable. She treated him like a little brother. He followed her everywhere. Their laughter filled rooms that once felt empty. And that laughter healed wounds nobody could see. One afternoon Ethan found himself standing alone in Emily's memorial garden. It had been years since her death. For a long time visiting the garden only brought pain. But this time felt different. The breeze moved gently through the flowers. Sunlight filtered through the trees. And for the first time, he smiled. Not because he missed Emily less. But because he finally understood something. Love never disappears. It changes people. It grows through acts of kindness. It continues through the lives we touch. And somehow Emily's love had led him to Sarah and Noah. A year after that freezing winter night, something remarkable happened. Sarah received recognition from her healthcare organization for outstanding service. She had become one of the most respected employees in her department. Patients loved her. Coworkers admired her. Supervisors trusted her. The same woman who once slept under a bus shelter was now helping others heal. The transformation inspired everyone who knew her story. Yet Sarah never forgot where she came from. Every month she volunteered at homeless shelters. Every winter she donated blankets. Every chance she got, she helped struggling mothers. Because she remembered exactly what it felt like to be invisible. And she refused to let others feel the same. One snowy evening, nearly 2 years after their first meeting, Ethan drove past the same bus shelter where everything began. He stopped the car. Lily sat beside him. Noah sat in the back seat. And Sarah smiled quietly. The shelter looked exactly the same. But their lives didn't. For several moments nobody spoke. Then Lily looked out the window. The little girl who had once noticed a freezing baby had grown wiser. Kinder. Stronger. And she asked a simple question. She wondered how many other people might need help tonight. The question lingered in the air. Because it mattered. There are countless people fighting battles we cannot see. Single parents. Homeless families. Lonely widows. Struggling workers. Broken hearts. Hidden pain exists everywhere. Sometimes all it takes is one person to notice. One person to stop. One person to care. And that single act can change an entire future. Ethan eventually established a foundation dedicated to helping homeless mothers and children. Not because he wanted publicity. Not because he wanted recognition. But because one little girl had shown him what truly mattered. The foundation helped hundreds of families. Then thousands. Housing assistance. Emergency childcare. Job training. Medical support. Real opportunities. Real hope. All because a child once looked through a car window and refused to ignore suffering. The greatest lesson wasn't about money. Or success. Or business. It was about humanity. Because the most powerful force in the world isn't wealth. It's compassion. And compassion multiplied can transform lives. Before this story ends, please leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and what country you're in. We'd love to see how many hearts from around the world are connected through this story. Years later, Noah would learn the full story of that freezing winter night. He would learn how close he came to being forgotten. How close his mother came to losing hope. And how one little girl changed everything. When he heard the story, tears filled his eyes. Not because he felt sadness, but because he understood the extraordinary power of kindness. One caring child. One compassionate father. One moment of courage. And an entire future was rewritten. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to support more inspiring stories like this one. And tell us in the comments, which country are you watching from? Your message may inspire someone else somewhere in the world today. Because sometimes the greatest miracle isn't being saved. It's becoming the reason someone else survives. And on a freezing winter night, a CEO, a little girl, a homeless mother, and a tiny baby discovered that even the coldest darkness can be defeated by the warmth of a caring heart. The end.